Hello and welcome to our Saturday stream. This is Fantasy Grounds Unity Map and Image Creation. I'm Josh, and thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be going over a lot of the new stuff that's just come out. As you may or may not already know, the new lighting system and token vision was just released this last Thursday, so that is now pushed live. It was a really good launch, and things seem to be going exceptionally well, which is always fantastic. So we're going to be looking at some of that stuff today, making sure that everybody has a good understanding of that, as well as building some maps and doing some fun stuff. Excellent. So thanks everyone for joining. I can see, yes, J-Rock in on YouTube. Yes, we now stream on several platforms at once. So every time that we stream now, it's going to be on YouTube, Fantasy Grounds, Twitch channel, also on our Steam channel, Facebook, and as well as some other ones. So wherever you're at, you'll be able to watch and check out what we're doing. So this is the new theme that's going to be coming out this next month. This is the dark theme that I had talked about last week. Oh, Zacchaeus is here. Yay. How's it going, Philip? So this is the first thing that I'm going to be doing is showing this off. So this is going to be released. If you do have the art subscription, you will get this for free. Everything that, well, it's included in the art subscription. So if you do have the art subscription, I think it's $5 a month, $50 a year. You get access to everything that we produce in-house. So we put out 2 or 3 products every single month, usually 2 maps and 2 map packs and 1 theme. So there's tons and stuff already been released. So if you do get the art subscription, you're going to get access to all of that stuff immediately, as well as anything else that we come out. And so this is the new theme that I've been working on, and this is going to be coming out this next month. So you can see here it's a dark kind of theme. I know that a lot of people really enjoy this. And so if you do happen to like this kind of aesthetic, then this is going to be something that's great for you. If you don't have the art subscription, you can certainly pick it up on the store, either at our own store at fantasygrounds.com or on the Steam page. Oh, yes. Great. Yeah. So the Sci-Fi is going really well. There'll be more Sci-Fi coming out in the future. This next month, we won't have any Sci-Fi elements coming out, but there will be in the future as well. So please let me know if there's anything that you guys would like to see, or if there's certain art packs. I want to do one for creating spacescapes, like creating your own planets and all kinds of different astral kind of atmospheric effects and whatnot. So you could create your own universe, which would be super fun. And then I want to do also alien landscapes. So you can create all kinds of different alien looking worlds and whatnot from a top-down perspective. So for your battle maps. And so right now I'm actually in 5e. Oh yes, we're going to be doing some modern stuff coming out soon as well. So Kevin on Fantasy Grounds Facebook page is asking about that. There's so many different chats now. This is hard to keep up. Yeah, so here we are going to go through this theme really quickly. I'm just going to show this stuff off. So this is the type of aesthetic that you're looking for. I know that I get this is one of the major requests that I get is more dark themes. So I wanted to create something that was very sleek and kind of modern looking, yet in that same sort of aesthetic. So here we have our character picker. Here we have Bob and Bobbert. And you can see that everything has all been integrated exceptionally well and is quite accessible, easy to read, and yet a little bit easier on the eyes with the dark kind of aesthetic. So we can just close these down. Get this out of the way. So we have notes and our images. And as you can see here, we have these nice little image panels that we can interact with. We also redid all of, if you have not seen this, this is in Core RPG. We've redone all of the toolbar options in your image panel. So these have all been updated as well. And we're going to be getting into this in a moment. I'll be showing you all of the different elements inside of there. So all of your different windows all finished up here. Oh yeah, we should go back and check out the character sheet one more time. All of these small little elements are all well integrated. So you can see that we have total access, and this is a complete visual overhaul. So I replaced all of the default images. And let's see what else. Oh, we have our combat tracker, which is also very easy to read. We can go through all of the different factions here, both active and inactive. Integrated quite well, and all of these different elements should be pretty substantially easier to kind of interact with here. So as we go, and you can see we have a nice GM logo here. I've also, let's move over the dice tower. I have reinstituted a resizable dice tower. So you can change this to whatever size you wish, and this lights up pretty well here. So we have these nice little interactable kind of situations. Yes, it is Dark Soul. This is the new Dark theme that will be coming out this next month. What are we in May now? So yeah, it'll be in June. We have all of our different elements here and so on. So we have NPCs. And again, we're in the 5th edition. This has probably the most used rule set that we have. So I oftentimes tend to start here. Making sure that everything is going to be easily interactable and works exceptionally well. But this will work in every single rule set. So anything that you have or want to play, from core RPG all the way to Cthulhu and sci-fi and beyond, this is all going to work with all of these different elements. And we have our party sheet. And we have our library, and I've been working on the reference manual as well to make sure that everything here is going to be easily interactable and also very legible. So everything should be up to snuff and excellent. So when this does come out, if you do find any bugs, please report it in the forums, and we'll take care of it as soon as possible. Oh, the effects in the combat tracker. So if we add an effect in here, for example, we can add in a new one. We could add in a light effect. And we can close down all of these different elements that we don't need. So it should be quite a nice theme and easy on the eyes, which is always good. Plus, we're going to be going through and using this today as we start to build our new elements here. So I am in 5th edition with the new lighting switchover. I haven't actually been able to transition where we were working in test before with the crashed spaceship that we built last time. So we'll have to postpone that for next week. We'll be building that next week, the interior of that. We'll be starting a new kind of creation here. But we're going to be sticking with the sci-fi elements and be building up from there. So I'm going to open up my image window. And I'm going to go into uncategorized. See, you have a test image that I've been working with here. Go into our assets, and I'm going to go right over into our sci-fi elements here. So we're going to be doing interior today. We're going to build a nice interior. And hopefully this will take up not too much of our time, and then we can kind of branch off and do some additional things later. But I do have, when this first released, it will be updated, but there are some additional kind of maps and whatnot that I had pre-created. So you're going to get, let me just adjust the size of this. And so there's a whole bunch of these that you can just kind of grab and drop in there and do all that. But I want to create an interior kind of space. And we're going to be working with a bunch of the lighting features and all of that stuff. So it should be super fun. We have a question here from YouTube from Jason. Are the lighting effects dependent on the system? 5E2. Yes, yes, you're absolutely correct. So the rule set determines how this kind of interacts with, because it's done through the effects engine. And as that gets applied to your elements, and it's also integrated into our grid system, and I'm going to be demonstrating some of that today as well. Yes, so all of that is going to be rule set specific, and you also have total control over it. So you can change that on the fly and interact with it in lots of different ways, which is what we're going to be seeing today. And if you guys want, I can actually, let's actually, just for a quick little demonstration, let me just grab this and we'll start right off with this interior pre-created map here. And you can see all of their side has all been readjusted. So we have this nice kind of clean layout that's going to work exceptionally well with the new theme. And we can jump right in here. There's no line of sight that's been applied to this yet. This is my in-house kind of working area here. But I have this kind of like cryogen establishment here. And I'll just quickly set this up with our line of sight, and then we'll do some lighting. We'll talk about the grid system and all of that. So my grid is going to be naturally set up to 100 by 100. That's what I've set up it to default to with our art packages. So anytime you drag and drop an image in here, it's going to adjust this. Or if you create an image just from one of these elements that we have from our assets, we can immediately adjust that. As it should actually automatically adjust it, but I always go in and check to make sure that we have it exactly the way we want it. So let's quickly set up our line of sight, and then we can add in all of our lighting. Right, we don't have any sort of cone yet, J-Rock, but there probably is going to be something along those lines in the future. And I can show you how I can set up static lights to kind of represent that with our shadow occluders. So there's a lot that you can actually do manipulating these lights, even as in the system that we have now. So this was like this cryogen chamber. We have this this like power source area in here, and then we have all of these pods and all kinds of scientific equipment and whatnot, as well as offices and this entry area. So I'm just going to jump in with my walls, and actually, you know what? I'm going to do my doors first. It's always a good idea to do our doors first. So I'm just going to jump right in and create a couple of doors, and I'm going to do this all on the same layer. And just for time's sake, so that we can set up some of these lights and talk about this stuff, and then we'll get into building our own little creation here. And I'll also turn on my grid so that we can kind of see this. I'm going to switch over, and I'm just going to line this up with the grid so that all of this is going to interact very well. One of the things that I try to be very conscientious of when I create these maps is to make sure that your token will easily be able to slide through these areas. And let's just go in and add in a couple more doors here. Hey, DJ Break Time. Again, I apologize. There's a lot of new chats, and we're streaming on multiple areas now. So if I don't see your comment, I apologize. I get this I have this one central chat, which affects, well, what it does is it puts all of the different chats into one conglomerate and then just kind of sends it to me. So I do get to see where you guys are each individually chatting from, but sometimes it does get quite a lot going on through there. Oh, thanks, Duck Punch. Now I'm going to switch over, and I'm just going to do some quick walls here. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this really super fast, and I'm going to talk to you guys about them. One way is, if you guys are unaware, we can use the spacebar and the arrow keys. So once I get my my mouse pretty well set up here, I can click out, and maybe I'm going to click to something like this. And now if I use my arrow key, I can just move, and I can continually do this in very straight lines. And then I can use my space bar to add in another one. And then I'm just going to do this and hit escape to end it. And now I can pick it right back up here. and if I so wish, I can just use my arrow keys. It's always going to move me exactly 1 square. So this is a really great way that you guys can quickly create perfect straight lines and angles. So it's a really, really interesting kind of dynamic. And I also can just drag and drop these as well. I'll make 1 point there. And I'm not going to be very precise about this. And we're going to connect this across in a moment. And go all the way through here. And you always want to cross over when you're doing your line of sight. This will create a perfect seamless event rather than trying to match it up perfectly. And then I'm going to come back and delete all of the end bits that are kind of sticking out. And it's very important that we set up our line of sight because this is what the system is going to be using in order to help with all of the lighting system. So the lighting system is heavily tied into our line of sight system. And this might actually be a really good opportunity to take a map and then show how we can add in any other elements that we wish, how to alter a map in any way that we want to, and do a whole bunch of different stuff along those lines. Oh, look, we forgot a door. So have you guys been playing around with the lighting system? Trying it out? There's also a few controls that are now available through the chat commands, and I'll be showing those off today as well. We have a question from Facebook from Kevin. Nope, it's not any more difficult to set up outside at all. Nope. Oh yes, and if you get the new Castle Ravenloft Van Richter's guide that's going to be coming out, there's a whole bunch of new maps that I created, and Zacchaeus did all of the cool lighting and line of sight already set up in them. So that should be super exciting. Yeah, in fact, if you guys want, what we can do is we can take this rather bright looking facility and we can completely turn this into this kind of broken down, maybe abandoned facility that and I'm going to connect these here. And once I have all of these done, what I'll do is I'll go back in and clean it up. I just have to do these walls right here. And one of the great things about the way that the system works is that if I want to, I can zoom all the way in and manipulate these on a even smaller than a pixel by pixel basis if I really want to get it perfect. Ooh, Cult of the Reptile God. I love that module. In fact, that's one of my favorites of all time. Oh yeah, we could do like a containment breach. Yeah, that sounds cool, Dark Soul. We could do maybe like a radiation leak and lots of fun stuff. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my grid system. This is a little bit too intrusive for me. So I'm just going to switch over and grab my little tint, and I'm just going to drop down the opacity. I want to have it present, but not to be overpowering. And now I'm going to switch back, and I'm just going to come in and holding down Shift, I'm just going to select all of these little elements that are sticking on the outside here. And then I can just hit delete on my keyboard, and boom, we can just get rid of them. And the reason why I do this is this just ensures that everything is going to be completely airtight. And so, oh, looks like we have to do one more right here. There'll be no little areas that my line of sight does not completely block from the players. Inadvertently, I do have a tendency, whoop, I didn't want to do that one. And if you guys have not noticed, the Control Z undo feature in the image area has been removed momentarily. It will be beginning put back in, but to some of the changes that are going to be coming and whatnot, it needs to be reassessed. So that's why it's been removed for the moment. Did I miss one little section of the wall? All right, so here we have all of our line of sight. We did it super fast, and it was really easy to do. Oh no, COVID symptoms. That's no good, Hauser. Hopefully it's nothing too severe, or you recover very, very quickly. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set up this line of sight, and now we're going to add in all of our lighting. So there's a couple of different ways we can do this. If we want to have an ambient light source, we want to click on the ambient lighting right over here. Now, your theme is going to determine how the colors and whatnot of your little workspace over here. Yours is probably not going to be gray. That's going to be completely dependent on this particular theme. So if yours looks a slightly different, everything's going to be arranged exactly the same way. It's just going to be different colors depending on the rule set and theme that you've selected. Nope, Control Z was disabled, but only for a short time. Pardon me while I have a sip of water. And so we're going to add in our, we're not going to actually use an ambient light source. We're actually going to be putting it in with our actual little added lights in through here. We have a completely interior area here. So there's no real reason for me to have this like constant ambient light source. If I did want to, I could certainly do that. If I wanted to have some low lighting across all of this, I could set it all up there. And I can demonstrate that, and then we can turn it off. So the first thing we're going to do is go into our play area. We're going to turn on our line of sight, make sure that our lighting is enabled. I'm going to turn this on, and then we're going to switch back over. And you can also do this with a shortcut key, right? So Control P will always give you a preview of what the players do. So even in over here, I can always hit Control P and see exactly what the players would see. So let's turn on some ambient light. We'll turn it on right now, and you can see that it's at full blast right here, pure white light. And now I can just drop down the opacity if I wanted to make it much more low. And we don't have to worry about our direction or the length of our shadows because I'm going to keep those off right now. But here we can hit Control P, and you can see that this is too dark. Our players are still not going to be able to see anything. So I can adjust this holding down Control P the whole time. I can get a very light little area in here. Maybe we're going to have like some red lighting. We could do something along those lines, or we can move this up. So there's any number of different ways that we can kind of interact with this. And you can see as I let off Control P, our player view is going to change. So if you want to set up some sort of mood lighting across the entire map, you can certainly do this. Without having any shadows, it's going to go right through all of our walls and whatnot, and there's going to be no interaction there. It's just going to be ambient throughout the entire area. But we're going to turn this off. We don't really need this on here because I want to do some independent light sources. Oh, let's see. Bruno says maybe did something wrong. Had a problem that was when put lights on the map and put a token to walk on the map. I'm not exactly sure if I understand your question. Do you mean that the token couldn't see the lights? Because you got to make sure that you drag any token onto the map from the combat tracker. And we'll be adding Bob, and maybe we'll even add Bobbert too. And we'll set up all of those lights, and I'll show you guys how to set up all of your different lightings for your tokens and whatnot in a couple of different ways. So great. And now that we have all of this set up, we're going to switch back over to our add light area here. And we're going to just start dropping in a couple of different light sources. So I'm thinking, let's add some kind of spooky lights in here. We kind of talked about it last time. I'm going to do some smaller ranged ones here. So this is going to be dependent on the way that our grid is set up, because this is 5E. Each grid system is 5 feet. And so the way that our lighting system is going to be reading this is 20 feet. You can see the little emblem right on the side there. If I change any of these parameters, it's going to affect my lighting system. So for example, and let's do this really quickly here. I'm just going to drop in a light source. Let's just drop it in here. Let's make it a lot smaller so that we can see kind of what it is. So I'm going to switch over to my select light, and then I'm just going to drop this down to like 10. Oh, no, 10. And let's do our dim down to 15. So we have a very small little light source in the middle of this room. You can see that it's 10 feet and 15 feet. So if I put this right in the middle, you can see that this is going to come out, if it was in the center of one square, we have 10 feet out, and then we have an additional 5 feet of dim light beyond that. So if I come back into here, and let's say I would change the multiplier to 10, when I switch back over into my lighting, you can see that this has all been adjusted. Now this is 20 and 30. So these systems interact in conjunction with each other. If I put this back to 5 and I switch back over to my lighting, you can see this has now been adjusted to 10 and 15. Certain games like Savage Worlds, where it's just counted in squares, this would just be a number of squares. And so that is a really good distinction. So when you're doing all of these and setting all of this stuff up, don't worry if you have to change your grid system whatsoever. This is going to update accordingly. Now I'm going to create this light, and we're going to add in some pulse behavior. And we can now make it go in and out. I think I actually want flash. We'll do like some flickering kind of like the overhead fluorescent bulbs that we had talked about last time, flickering and making a rather horrific kind of atmosphere. So let's do that in this room in here. And so what I'm going to actually do is drop this down. You know what? I think I'm going to actually drop this down to 0. So we just have this dim light source. And we'll drop this down to something like 10 feet, just something really small. And I'm going to do this drop off to maybe 100. And now if I switch back over to our player view, you can see this is the kind of low ambient flickering light that we're going to get from this interaction here. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to do the same here. And maybe even a little bit smaller. Again, along these lines. And we're going to do this flash and a different amount. And I'm going to drop it in right next to it. So we're going to get this kind of crazy flickering interaction here. Now if I hold down Control P, I'm going to see the DM's perspective. And so we can actually begin to create this kind of random flickering kind of feeling just by changing 2 different light sources. And when they overlap, when the 2 dim lights overlap, it's going to create my own bright light itself. So sometimes it's going to be dim, sometimes it's going to be bright, and it's going to feel kind of inconsistent. And I can actually come in and maybe drop in another one here. And we'll do another one right next to it. And then I'm just going to come in, and when I select these, we'll change their parameters here a little. And now we have these kind of, yes, like broken lights. Exactly. And so that's a neat little trick that we kind of worked out last time, creating some different stuff. Now let's put on some maybe some emergency lighting. You can see we have these. We can do soft little glows from these handprint locking mechanisms. So we can come in and we can do something similar, except we want no flash from this. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab the same kind of color that we have here. And I'll make it a little bit, I'm going to go in the same vein here. And we're just going to drop down something similar right in here. And maybe we'll increase, we'll actually do it here. And so now we're going to have this nice cool little area, and we can hit Control P to check that out. So here we're going to have like this nice little glow from these little events. So when our player comes in, they'll immediately be drawn to these. Yes, a random flash, that would be cool. And now we can drop down these in exactly the same way at every one of these. And again, all of our line of sight, all of our lighting, all in the same layer. If I want to create separate layers, I certainly can. And we can do the same thing here too. So what I'm actually going to do is drop these down like this to create a nice little glow coming off of these terminals. And now I'm going to adjust them both at the same time by just selecting them both because everything in there is exactly the same. I can actually maybe increase this. Let's do 15. And let's increase that by 50. We might even want to do like 2 in our bright. And let's hit Control P. We'll see how that looks. Pretty good. I think I'll add in a couple more on each side here. Yeah, that's looking pretty good there. And now let's add in a nice little light source. We have this this erratic kind of energy coming through here. So again, I'm just going to grab this and grab my color picker. Get in here somewhere. Let's actually turn off our line of sight so I can grab the nice bright color here. Hit OK. And then I'm going to drop a light source right in there, and we can go back and turn this stuff back on. And switch back over here. We want to make sure we're in here. And what I'm actually going to do, I think what we'll do is create a couple of these. Let's increase the size of this to 2. And I'm just going to overlap maybe a couple of these like this. Excellent. So we've got a whole bunch of lights, and we can switch back and forth now to kind of see what we have going on. Yes, the color picker can, what it actually does is it grabs the actual end color that you see. So if you want the original kind of color, and this should also be noted, right? Your color picker is not limited to just inside of your workspace here. So if I grab this, I can go anywhere inside of Fantasy Grounds and grab any of these colors. And one of the great things about it is, for example, if I wanted to match up my color of my dice to particular elements of my theme, for example. So let's say that maybe I want my dice to be the same color as some of this blue that's around. I can grab this and boom, my dice will match that up. So there is some fun stuff that you can do with it, but it should be noted that it is the actual color that's presented to you. And now what we can do is begin to add in some cool kind of ambient stuff. So I'm going to just turn off my player view for the moment, so we get like a better kind of understanding where we're going to be placing these. And as long as these lights are static, as long as they're not going to be moving around, you can place quite a lot of them and have very little impact on your system. I think that we'll go back to more of a blue for in here, and maybe we'll keep this like, oh, we have to add in another one here. We'll change this one's, oh, let's go in and change this one's color. And maybe we'll get rid of, oh, make sure that I'm selecting the right ones here. Just a nice little soft glow from the screen. And again, we can switch over and we can see if we zoom in here, we have this kind of nice little soft ambient. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch back over to my lighting system here. And I'm going to grab my shadow caster. And with the same layer selected, I'm just going to grab this guy. Let's try that again. So that I want my lighting to not come out this direction, only to go this direction. So I'm actually going to just add this in. Make sure that my light is on the correct side here. And now when we hit Control P, you're going to see that this is going to just create this nice soft glow coming from one side of that computer screen. And we have all kinds of different elements. And so let's just put in some general lights now. Maybe we'll do some emergency lights. Let's reset this. I'm actually going to make them just a little bit yellow. So I'm just going to drop down my blue just a little bit and hit OK. And now we want to do some, again, we can not even do any bright if we don't want to. But we can. Let's do something along the lines of 10, and we'll do like 20. And I'm going to do a greater fall off, so it's just a little bit softer. Maybe we'll drop a couple in here. And we can place them along the walls. And now if we switch back over, we can turn this on and we can start to get a better understanding about what we're creating here. And you can see that this is really starting to add a whole nother dimension to what we have going on here. And we can jump over and maybe add in one in here, or maybe even a couple. Let's see where we should put this. Maybe up against this wall. Maybe one in the corner. And at any time I can hit Control P to kind of see what's going on. We might want to drop one in here. And let's do one in here, but I think I'm going to drop down. I want this one to be a little bit lighter. We'll put it into, let's do it coming off of this. And then I'm just going to grab the opacity of this and just bring it down. Now I think what we'll do is add in some elements down in the actual cryo chamber. Again, I'll switch back over so I can kind of see where I'm going to be placing these. And I'm going to change my lighting again. Let's make this, let's make it a little bit like purpley. And I'm going to do these actually coming off of, and that's a little bit too large. Let's see what's going to work for us. Maybe like 5 and 15. 5, not 2. Yeah, I think that works pretty good. And so I'm going to mimic those 5 and 15. And I'm just going to place them on these little cryo chambers, like they're emitting some light here. Now, if this is a little bit too much, I think it's a little bit too much. What I can actually do is select all of these at once. And then I can just drop down the opacity of them all to get this nice kind of glow in here. So what should be noted is that all of these, all the lighting system is additive. Once you place a light in there, it's going to mix with any other lighting, including player token lighting and so on. So you should be aware of that. So it's a really good feature that we can just grab them all at once and kind of do all of our adjustments in a single kind of stroke there. Does anybody have any questions while I'm moving through this? If you do, just throw it into chat. I will try my best to keep a good eye on it. And if you do run into any sort of issues or whatnot, just let me know and I can try to explain it a little bit further there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn off my lighting for the moment. I'm not going to turn off my lighting, just my player preview. And I want to create maybe a cool little area in through here. Perhaps we're going to do like maybe there's like a reactor leak or something along those lines. Maybe this is like a nuclear power kind of area. So we can create some cool kind of stuff like that. What I'm actually going to do is let's go all the way up into our abyssal map pack. And we'll go into, let's just, whoop, I didn't want to do that. And let's just type in smoke. We got a whole bunch of cool smoke images here. So I'm going to create a new painting layer. And this kind of gets into how do we adjust these? How do we change pre-created maps and so on? Well, it's super easy. We can paint right over the top of a lot of this stuff. So I'm just going to grab one of these images and I'm just going to be able to begin painting. I want to do like some sort of radioactive kind of fog in here. And so we're going to do that a couple of different ways. I'm going to be using some effects layers and I'm also going to be stamping some of this stuff out as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to worry too much about my opacity or colors right now. I'm going to change that later. And we can flip it around. And I'll grab a couple of different ones here. And maybe we'll grab, let's grab this one. And if we hit Control P, we can kind of see here that this is kind of obscuring that. And we can drop down into our other side here. I'm just going to drop down my opacity here a little bit. Create this kind of ambient kind of smokiness. And then I'm going to create a new effects layer. And this effects layer, I'm going to do an adjust colors. And we're going to make this, let's increase the green. And then I'm going to add a mask. Holding down Alt, I can now start to draw out my mask. And we can start to blur out that edge there. And I think I'll drop that down. I don't want it to be so obvious. And then I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to change this to, let's say, we could either do like clouds and add a little bit of movement in there. or maybe I'll do like ocean one. And we'll just drop down our distortion quite a lot. And maybe we'll make the speed quite slow, so it's this like slow kind of leak here. So we have a question here from Facebook. Running a rhyme of the Frost Maiden and want to limit line of sight and lighting to 30 feet, no matter what vision the players have. Is that possible? It sure is. All you have to do, and I can actually demonstrate here in a moment. And now when we check this out, you can see, look, we have all of this cool kind of interaction here. So again, I'm going to switch back down to my adjust colors. Let's switch back over. And I'm just going to bring this down a little bit more, maybe down to like 52. Yeah, that's looking very cool. And what we can do is add all of these things layered on top of each other. So let's, we have all of this different stuff that's going on. We have this cool little ambience from our lighting and all of our things. And you can see that this really gives that feeling of like this is lit up and glowing. So I'll turn this off just for the moment, and we'll grab our little buddy Bob over here. And I'm just going to drag and drop him right onto the workspace over here. Make sure that we're in our play mode. So if I turn this on and I click on Bob, you can see Bob can't see anything. There's no light on the outside here. Let's give him a light though, just so that he can interact here a little bit. So you have this nice light on the outside here, and you can see that this casts shadows from the actual lighting itself, from our line of sight. So we'll put this right on the outside of the door here. So let's say that no matter what, and for this demonstration, why don't we turn back? I'm going to jump this back on. And you can see that this interacts with the walls as well, because although that I've turned on lighting everywhere, and I'll grab actually just to show this. Let's grab, well, I might as well just do it in the abyssal one. I'll grab one of these background areas. So let's say we have this. Well, I think that it's actually tiles in this. I'll grab a couple of tiles that we can create a little area out here. Make sure I'm in my painting tab here. Grab one of these. Let's make it a 10 by 10. I think that's what it's supposed to be. Holding down control, I'm just going to snap it to the grid. And this is just for the vision demonstration. So if I, with all of this back on, and I come back into play here, I think we have to turn the lights on and off again. There it is. All updated here. And you can see that Bob can see all of this out here, right? And we have quite a lot of distance out here. So let's say I want to limit Bob's vision completely, regardless of any sort of lighting or line of sight. All I have to do is add vision to him, and I can do that in the combat tracker, for example. And I have to just set a distance, but I can also do it right in our lighting system over here, right? So we have a token vision. So we have near, far, and we don't have to, oh, these off have to have a preset. But if we do it in the combat tracker, I don't believe that they'd have to. So if we go into our effects and we add a new effect to Bob, and we just type vision, and we just type in something like 30, you can see that it can no longer see outside of 30 no matter what. So this is really great if we want to do something along the lines of create like that fog of war, or if we want to, there's like a storm going or something along those lines. So now as he moves around, no matter what, he can never look beyond 30 feet. So that is exactly how you can do it. And you can also add in drop off and whatnot. I forget the actual terminology of what you're supposed to add in here to do like the dim kind of lighting at the end too for your vision. But that's a simple, easy way. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can actually limit his vision regardless. So yeah, so all of it you can set a hard cap to how far he can see, and you can do a dim one too. I forget the terminology. I'm sure it's in the patch notes. What you type in after this to do the drop off. I'll get that for you when I take a break. I usually take a break around 4:30. So you don't have to add in any additional information beyond vision and limit it. Yeah, even if he has dark vision, you can put a hard cap on it. Oh, is there not Zacchaeus? I know that there is in here, so we can do near and far. So, for example, let's remove this, and if I wanted to give him true sight and if I wanted to give him 25 with a far of 30, and we can do maybe like 50. I don't think that that works inside of this particular. I know that most of your vision is supposed to come specifically from the combat tracker. Okay, so moving on from that, let's. I'm just going to go back into my painting area, and let's. Ooh, that's interesting. All right, now let's move our guy back over into our area over here, and we can turn all of this back on. We can move. Let's consolidate our space over here a little bit. And you can see that he can interact with all of these different elements. And if I were to open the door, for example, all of the lighting is all set up in here. Make sure he has no effects. Oh, I'm not exactly sure, Justin. You might have to actually edit his dark vision as well. So if you go into the character sheet and where it is listed on the character sheet. So for example, if Bob, are you playing in 5e? Because if you're playing in 5e, it's going to be tied to, let's grab a race in here. Which one has a dark vision? Something like, I think Elf does, right? Dark vision. So if I grab Elf dark vision and I drop it onto my race here, sure, let's do a drow. So all of his so here he is. He is in here, and if we look at his abilities, he's got keen senses, um, all of this should be all added into your features, right? So it's going to add it all in independently. You might have to go in and adjust it. Yeah, don't click the check, not the X. But all of that is completely adjustable. So as we begin to move through here, let me just delete this guy from my let's add, let me move this out of the way. Clean up my workspace here. Let's add Bobbert in here too. And so all of our lighting seems to be a little bit too much here. Let's just do it. Oh, I still have my ambient lighting on. That's why. Silly me. So with the token selecting, you'll always, if you select a player's token, you'll always be able to see what that particular token is able to see, which is very important, especially when you're testing things out and doing all of these kind of environmental adjustments. As you can see, as we move into this area, all of the lighting goes away. And if we hit Control P, we can see that there is no lighting in that area. So it's working. You saw Doug playing with ambient effects, creating different shadows by daytime. Yes, it is still possible. Yep. In fact, if we switch back over, and I'll just turn off all of these lighting for a moment, and we can turn back on our ambient light source. So here we are. So right now I have shadows turned off, but if I turn this on and I adjust this, we can actually set it to like dusk, and I can change the length of my shadows or the direction. I can individually adjust the color of my shadows or the color of my light, but I can also do like moonlit, sunlight, dawn. And again, I can adjust these. And if I were to, let's just move all the way out so you can kind of see this. It's going to affect everything along these lines. So let's turn off our ambient once again. And we can just turn these lights back on. And make sure I have my player view in here. So now what I'm actually going to do is let's add a light to him. So we can just type in a new light for him. This is going to be like light, and maybe we'll just do like a 15-foot light, and we'll call it a candle. And you can see, boom, he instantly has that updated. Now, as we're moving around and investigating, we have our own light source. You can see that we have a nice flicker from the candle itself. And we're able to interact with all of these other light sources. And you can see that this is all additive, my light, in addition to the lights that are coming from the top there. Now maybe I want to turn off my light. I can do it a couple of different ways. I can just basically turn it off from the combat tracker and turn it back on at any time. And so you can see how these nice little glowing elements can be interacted with. these very soft and subtle ambience we can create. So yes, Stuart has a question from Facebook. Is there any advantage or disadvantage for using effects versus token lighting? So yes, the token lighting in here is designed to be used with something that doesn't come from the combat tracker. You should be using the effects engine in order to generate your lighting because you're able to do, and this is another thing that is super cool about this. For example, you can set up your effects on a torch, for example. So your items can have its own effect attached to it. And when doing it, when you equip that item, it'll automatically kind of create your lighting effect as well. So adding in those elements from the combat tracker is how it's kind of intended to be used. It allows me to turn it on and off really easily. I can do all kinds of adjustments from it and so on. If we go into our effects up here too, we have all of our pre-made ones as well. So for example, if I were to delete this, and maybe we'll grab Bob and drop Bob on here as well. So with Bob selected out here, I can just add a candle by a push of a button. And this is going to be dependent on the preset of the rule set as well. And when we look on here, we can see it's already set up for us right in here. And we can have a duration. So this is going to go out in 600 rounds. These are all presets. So they do have their light and dark, but you can also adjust them manually. And so it should be noted that this system works just like these would, right? So you got to make sure that it is like Bobbert's turn here. Maybe he has a torch. And you can see that this shadow caster, we can set up shadow casters for lots of things. So if, and this is kind of a cool way that these interact. So as he moves around, he's going to cast a shadow that is going to be able to be, as you can see, seen by another player. So he has his vision and the shadow is cast. He can actually create a cast shadow. It's going to be much lighter because of all of the ambient light that's going on right now. But all of these kind of cast shadows from each other's lights are visible from other players, as you can see here. That's a good question, Stuart. It said, how can you actually add the lighting effect to an item? This is not really my area of expertise as far as like the rule side kind of things, but you can certainly do it. I can look it up for you maybe during my break and see if I can come back and show you guys exactly how to do it. So with this too much lighting in here, let's jump into our combat tracker, and as you can see, if I want to, I can just turn that right off. And now we're back to our normal kind of ambient lighting. It looks like that we have, oh, he's got dark vision. So his dark vision from being an elf is immediately applied to him, as you can see. So as he moves around, if there's no light source, he sees everything in gray, which has no bearing on our good buddy over here. Oh, is that an extension only, Zacchaeus? All right, so let's move on throughout, and we can see that all of there are lighting is working. And let's go into our little reactor area here. And so as we move into this, you can see we've created this cool like reactor leak. And we can turn our, let's change this. Let's get rid of that torch. And I'm just going to add in my own. Let's just do like a 10-foot torch. Something that's not quite so invasive. And you can see that as I move into the area, I can see all of this kind of leaking material, which also all interacts with the lighting system. And each one of these rooms is easily explorable. No, you can customize the dim as well, and the range. So you have total control. I'm not exactly sure what the terminology is. It could be like the default is whatever you write in here, it'll do exactly the same in it'll do exactly the same in right. So if you were to open up your Actions tab, you can create your own effects in here. I believe. The other thing that should be noted is with this update, you can no longer, as a GM, drag through walls. So in order to do that, you want to hold down Shift, and then you can drag through walls. The other thing that has been recently added is that there is a new chat command. And this is super helpful, especially for people who have lower end computers. And then that is, we can do /light image quality is what it is. And you can set this between 0 and 3. And so if I set this to 3, you can see that it's going to update this. And what that's going to do is it's going to change how these masks interact. So if you have a lower end system, changing that to 3 or 2 can be super helpful. So it's just /image quality, and then setting it to 0 would be like maximum. And you can see it gives a nice kind of clean line to these. And this is on a per machine basis. Yes, it's set to 2 by default. So 0 would be the best detail, and it is Not really about the actual quality of the image itself. It's very little change in your actual images. It is about the masking features and the lighting effects. So 0 would be the best quality, and 3 would be the least, the most forgiving on your system. Oh, that's a good question, J Rock. I'm not sure if it always resets to its default or if it does get saved. No, there should be. I believe it has been updated on the FGU wiki in the lighting section. Turn off the fog of war. If you're using fog of war, there's lots of different ways to interact with it. You can right click, go into your layers, and you can turn on enable mask, which will add a new button up here. Mask mode for drawing out all of these things. If you're into using your fog of war, you can certainly still use it. So you can either go through your right click into layers, right on the mask, right on the map itself, or you can actually in the same tab over here, you'll see the little mask icon, and you can add a global mask or remove it, and also hide and reveal areas. If you want to reset the fog of war of your token, for example, let's get back into our play mode. You can just right click and go to visibility and reset fog of war. And what that's going to do is do exactly that. It's going to, anywhere that they've already been, they're no longer going to have any sort of knowledge of that. You can see that this person no longer has any knowledge of where they've been before. So do you guys have any questions about any of this before we go on and I'm going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and I'm going to actually start to build a map for you guys. We're going to be building something in the sci-fi genre. We did a crashed ship last time. This time we're going to be doing something of the interior stuff. No, there's no automation. The question is there any way to turn off the kind of the fog of war or the history of where someone has been? And so, no, there isn't. Yes, so players will all see the history of where they've been, for sure. So if you're a player, everywhere that you visited is going to show up as area. It's going to be light gray. Oh no. So let's just, I'm going to double click on Bob and get his character sheet up. I believe in his, let's see here. Dark vision we have right here in our senses. I wonder if I delete this, if it will delete his dark vision. It does. So you can just edit it here, right? Whoop. I wonder if that will work. Yeah. You just have to hit enter. So you can edit it right in this area of your senses as well. All right, guys. Well, if you have no other questions that are pertinent to this little lighting demonstration and setting up our line of sight here, we'll take a short break and then I'll come back and we'll start to build our own map. We're going to be building another sci-fi interior. We're going to do it right from the ground up. We're going to add in all of this stuff. It'll take us probably about an hour or so. And we'll add in all of these different elements. And you guys can help me set up all these different features as well. Oh, thanks so much for hanging out, Philip. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to take a very short break. I'm just going to refresh my tea and get some more water. And then we'll be back and we're going to be building something from scratch. So just hold on and I'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Took a short break there and just freshened up my beverage. And now we're going to be going in and creating our own little creation here. And we're primarily going to be using the sci-fi elements, excuse me, this week. And we'll jump right into this. We're going to be doing a interior location here. Do you guys have any suggestions on what we should be creating? Let's see here. Sci-fi interiors. I'm actually going to well, we can just begin to build out with. I'm going to create a new image, just a nice blank image here, and we'll open this right up. We can close down our image window here now. I'm going to set my grid to 100 by 100. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new painting layer, go into my floors, and I'm going to pick a base floor here that I'm going to start off with. We can augment this as we progress here. Let's go with something like this. Make sure I have my stamp tool selected. And I think I'm going to make this 4 by 4. So as I hold down Control, this will snap right to the grid, and that way I can make sure that I get this right in exactly where I want it to be. If I don't hold down Control, I can put it wherever I want to, but this is a very easy way for me to create this kind of like setup very, very quickly. Make sure that it snaps to the grid perfectly. Oh yes, sound. I really enjoy sound in my games as well. It is something that is very, very adds so much more ambience. I think the sound does, music and sound effects. And I'm just going to kind of build out a little bit here. We're going to use some variations, and now I'm going to flip it the other direction. Yeah, I use Sirenscape as well. I like Sirenscape, and there's a really great extension for Fantasy Grounds that enables like chat commands, so that you can set up a lot of automated sound. I'm going to drop down the opacity of my grid. And I'm going to grab some of these other elements that are similar but a little bit different. And I'm going to double click on this, and I'm just going to rename this floor. And again, I'm going to change this to a 4 by 4, I think, but I'm going to put it right in the middle. And I'm going to use this as like a hallway. We have these kind of nice ridges on either side. So I'm just going to kind of build this out from here. And now I'm going to change my floor up here a little bit. Let's go with something like this. And we'll build another little room here, and I'll just flip it. Let's change that orientation here a little bit differently. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And we'll begin to build out some of these other areas. You should also be noted that you can certainly paint this out with the line tool. So if you wanted to, you could even snap to the grid and draw these out. You want to make sure that your orientation is the way that you would like it to go, but you're certainly able to do it that way. And some of these actually work quite well as a brush, as you can see, like this. We do have a whole bunch of great brushes in this. Some of my favorite brushes that I made were these console brushes. So we have these nice little consoles. This is kind of like that used universe, like A New Hope, like Star Wars A New Hope. And you can paint these right out and around corners. And you can see it'll make like whole rooms with like consoles around the outside. Oh yeah, there's no more Control Z. And we also have another one that's more of like a sci-fi modern kind of console. So you can paint out whatever shape of console you wish and do all kinds of different stuff. But let's do these couple of rooms here. And I'm going to show you how I kind of like to set these up. So we have these trim brushes, and these are really great for adding in decorative kind of elements. And I like to use them as like baseboards along the walls as well, like underneath. So if I create a new layer here, and we're just going to call this one walls, and we can begin to paint out. And I'm just going to bend these right around. I'm holding down Control, so I snap to the grid. And I'm actually going to, without having my, ooh, that's interesting. And I'm actually going to do right across the bottom here as well. And let's do here. I think that, yeah, that should work out pretty well. Now let's grab a nice wall brush. We have a whole bunch of different ones that we can kind of choose from. Now, if you want to do Control Z is actually disabled for the moment. It's being reevaluated how it actually handles and interacts with the system. So we do not have Control Z at the moment. Oh yeah, I want to play a Starfinder or Traveler game as well. And so if I want to have actual rigid kind of corners, I can certainly do that. I think that we'll rename this base, and then we'll create a new one for walls. So we can easily generate our line of sight. And I'm actually going to just kind of snap to a section. I'm going to leave an opening there for my door. Let's just erase that because I want to make it a little bit smaller or a little bit on the outside of what I just did. So I think we'll just snap it just to the outside. Not quite like that. That's not exactly what I want to do. I think we'll make it maybe like 0.5. Or maybe we'll make it like 0.75. And I think I'll bring it right down and we'll leave a little opening there. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Except we want it to go in the other direction. So I'm going to flip it. And then I'm going to close it up to right here. And then I'm going to, again, come right off of here. And snap. And what I'm doing is I'm moving along just with the middle mouse button. And we'll leave an opening here for another door. So I'll hit escape to get out of there. And right around the edge here. And then we'll close it right up to there. Now with all of our walls laid out here, right, all we have to do is, if we want to generate our line of sight, we can just come into this area. We can just duplicate paint layer as line of sight. And boom, all of our walls are done immediately. Looks like we've got a little guy out there. But that's super easy to do. And now I'm going to go into the door area here, and I'm going to grab a couple of these doors. And I'm actually going to leave it in the same, I'm going to put it down here. Let's grab this one. And we can just, again, snap it right to the grid. Excellent. Well, so the Control Z is going to be put back in, and I'm sure it'll get put back in very shortly, J-Rock. It's just has to be reevaluated with the new system, and there has to be the way that it was handled before was a little bit clunky, so it's going to be updated into a much better fashion. Great. So now we have this really basic kind of setup here. We have a really easy kind of go about it. And now we're going to be able to add in all of our additional elements. We might as well just do our doors while we're at it as well. So I'm just going to grab, I'm going to use my rectangle. And I'm just going to pull out one. Well, that's not exactly how I wanted it to go. But that's okay. We can just adjust that. And we'll just snap these to their individual little elements in here. Make sure that it all lines up pretty well here. And I think this time what I'll do is just come right across and add in these little elements like this. And here's our doors. And now that all of our logistics are done, let's get back into creating our little area in here. So what we can do now is begin to populate this with all of our different decorations and create the little area that we want to. But before we get too much further, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to do my ambient shadows first in this particular area. There's a couple of different ways that we can do this. Oh, so we from YouTube, we have a suggestion for FGU. Don't know if it's possible, but with an automatic spell check like you have in a group in Google Chrome or system-wide on a Mac. Oh, like a spell check feature inside the program itself? Yeah, I'm not sure if that is possible, but that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? And what we'll do is, I don't believe that there are any shadow brushes in this particular art package. And I'm not exactly sure what I have loaded here. We're going to have a whole bunch of different shadows, though. So we have this nice little shadow brush. We also have one here from the interior map pack. So what I'm going to do is, let's use that one. I'll show you guys how you can use some of these shadow brushes. I'm going to actually create a new layer. We'll call this Shadows. So there's a bunch of different ways that we can actually go about doing this. So I'm just going to create a nice little soft, like ambient shadow coming off of the walls here. So we can do it a couple of different ways, and an easy way to do it is just to grab the rectangle brush, and I can start to pull out this shadow here. Now I don't have to be too worried about it, because I can come back into my Layers tab and I can readjust the size of this to whatever is going to be appropriate for my shadows here. And I'm just going to bring that in there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now when I drop this down underneath my wall, but above my base, you can see I have this nice kind of ambient shadow coming off of the walls there. Now there's another way that we can create our shadows as well. For people who has not seen this before, we can create an effects layer. We can change this to a adjust colors. We can drop down our brightness here a bit, and then we're going to create a mask. And again, we can do the same kind of thing. A really easy way to do this is to leave the mask or reveal the area inside of here, and then I'm going to hide the area in through here. So we'll go a little bit further than our other shadow here, and we'll just do this, and then we can blur those edges and create a nice little shadow coming off of this as well. And then we can adjust this accordingly. And now with this system going, I can do exactly the same thing throughout. And again, I can then come in and just hide the area in the middle, as you can see here. And that'll create us some really nice little ambient kind of shadows coming off of the edges. Super easy. I'm going to go back into the shadow, and I can actually drop this underneath my walls as well, so it doesn't interfere with the actual walls. And going back into the painting area, I'm actually going to use this brush some more as well. I'm going to make it a bit smaller, and then I'm going to drag it out from inside of here. And now you'll see that once this is all adjusted now, so this is going to be a little bit harder for me to do. I'm actually going to have to come in and erase some of this. I think I'm going to do it with the line tool to make it a little bit easier for me. And I'm just going to line it up and pull it out to around here. And then I'm going to do the same kind of thing along this wall. Let's try that again. Create some nice little ambient shadows, that ambient occlusion coming off of the edges. And boom, we'll do this room as well. So there we have our nice little ambient shadows coming off. Oh yeah, spell check, like a wizard spell. And now we can come all the way back up and go back into our Sci-Fi interior art pack. And then we're going to create in between here. I'll make a new painting layer and we'll drop this down. And we'll call this decor for all of our decorations. And we can add in some additional elements as well, like on our floor. So if we wanted to do like some more like gridded areas, we could do grates over the top of areas and whatnot. And there's lots of different stuff that we can do. But inside here, we have all the different things that we could use to create any number of different elements, as well as environments, right? Like we could do a spaceship's interior, or we could do any sort of, this is kind of like the base of all of the different sci-fi kind of elements that I could think of. So in here, we can type in something like table. And we have a whole bunch of different stuff in here. Maybe we'll make like a medical area in through here. But we can grab some of these tables. And maybe we're going to make sure we have our stamp tool selected. I think somebody said mess hall before. But we could do a whole bunch of different stuff. So we can just start to stamp these around. Maybe we're going to offset that a little bit. Maybe even do one that's a little bit turned slightly. And we can do some square ones as well. And I'll show you guys a nice little trick that you guys can do to create drop shadows from all the different elements we're going to be pasting onto this layer. So here we have some nice medical tables, which we could paint in as well. And there's a whole bunch of different like beds and whatnot. So we have these med beds and lots of fun stuff here. And at any time, we can adjust these underneath our shadows to get some of that ambience that's coming in from all of these different elements around. And we can also, if we decide that we don't like where those are, we can just change it. I think we'll do maybe just like one on one side. And I'm going to hold down Control and just kind of snap them into the corners here. And then we can create some stuff in the middle here, right? Like, I think I'll just line this up with the wall and boom. And again, we can come back in and we can type in any sort of element that we wish, maybe like a table. And then we can add in some additional tables in here. And let's do like a desk. Well, let's do a chair first. We'll have a we'll put a desk down in this corner. And we can put in some consoles. And now let's type in desk. So we'll grab something like this. So anyone who doesn't know, while you're using the stamp tool, if you hold down the shift and you use your mouse wheel, it'll rotate the image. Control will change its size. And now we got to give him a computer. And we have a whole bunch of different screens and whatnot that we can pick from. Now these are kind of cool because we can kind of just place these around and attach them to other areas, especially some of these elements that we could stick right to the wall. And we can start to layer these together, right? So it looks like that they have like this control panel with screens coming down from the side. We can put these in conjunction with our beds. And maybe even some that are attached to the bed in some way. And start to build out all kinds of different elements. Okay, so it's a very interesting question from the RPG Ginger. RP Ginger. So generally curious when we build a map like this from scratch, how big of a file does it end up being? When sharing with some of the bigger maps, their PCs struggle to share sometimes because of crap internet. Actually, and this is a really great kind of system that we have here. So for example, each one of these files is quite small. But the way that the system works, and this is something that should certainly be talked about a little bit more, is that, so for example, we used the same floor piece several times across here, building this up. So when I send this to my players, it's only going to send one of these tiles. So what it is like, for example, I could use 100 of these beds across, and it's only going to send one of these beds to my players. And then the technical data goes along with it of what I've done, how it gets changed, its orientation on the map, and so on. So it's actually a very small amount. And this allows us, as long as we limit the number of assets that we use, we don't go crazy, it allows us to create some very large maps and be able to share it with our players, even with a bad connection. So for example, like this wall, it's only one image that gets repeated, and then it gets recalculated and bent around corners. So only one segment of the wall is ever sent to the players. The rest of the walls are just recreated on their end inside of their fantasy grounds. So let's grab some crates. Those are always good to add it around, right? So maybe we'll grab something like this. I'm gonna have some medical supplies. Maybe a couple of smaller ones. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In our decorations here, we can start to build up some of these other elements. We have all kinds of different parts and whatnot. We should grab some of these cabinets, though. And what I like to do to kind of change this a little bit, and just make it a little bit more narrow, not quite that much. And I'm just going to stack this right up against here. Maybe we'll do a couple of them. Do one over here as well. But we have all of these different machine parts and lots of different cool stuff. And these can be built together, right? Like we can begin to create our little elements together. So if we start to build some stuff out like this, like we don't need to know what machine this is or what it's used for. And then we can add in some additional elements to it and really start to make it our own. And maybe it's going to have this piece coming off of the side. And this is where things really start to get fun for me as I begin to build these environments. All of this fancy equipment here. And we can do maybe something like this as well. Maybe I'll add this to the top of this bed. Yeah, that's a little bit off. Ooh, that made some interesting things happen. Let's rebuild that. Put these back here, and then we'll grab this one again. And this one. And I'll hold down Control this time so I can get it right into the right spot. Excellent. And I think what I'll actually do is come back into my floor base here, and we're going to go all the way up. Let's go not that far up. Into my floors, and I'm actually going to grab some of these grates that I have in here. Something like this. Create a nice little grated walkway. Add a little bit of variety here. And so now I'm going to show you guys. So we've created this little room in here, right? That's got quite a lot of stuff going on. We might want to add in some different elements in and around, depending on what we want to create here. But what I'm going to actually do is use like a round shadow brush to kind of sell all of this stuff as being what it is. And there's a couple of different ways that we can do things. So for example, a really easy way is I could duplicate all of these items that I just made. So it's what it's done is it's duplicated everything. So if I select this layer and I hit the duplicate selected layers, and it's going to make a copy of it, I can now go into my layers tab, and I can drop these all the way down to black. And we can drop down our opacity to something like 150 or even lower. Move this down underneath my actual items. And holding down Control, I can now move these out and create a perfect little drop shadow of them. And I think I'll just drop down all of these and a little bit further. Let's do something maybe down around like 90. And you can see that it's going to do it on everything that I put onto this layer. Nope, that's my dog. Oh, is there a mode for systems that do not use a grid? Story-based systems like Dungeon World. Do you mean for like image creation or map creation? So in the image and map creation system, you do not need to use a grid at all. We can turn the grid off. So we can turn this off. We can even change it to whatever style grid we want. We have total control over the size and orientation of the grid as well. So let's say, for example, excuse me, if I wanted to do an isometric grid, I could change this to an isometric grid really easily. Lots and lots of ways that we can kind of handle that. Yeah, you don't need to use the grid, but it's there, and it's really helpful if you're actually building up areas and doing stuff. And you can change the grid on the fly as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come all the way back up and maybe what we'll do is add in some. I can show you guys how this kind of stuff will work as well. So in our decor here, I'm just going to hold down Control and snap to the grid, and I'm going to go the other direction. And we can build a line of these. And then I can come in and add in. So this could be like this big panel in here. Now, where it's repeating and there's certain other elements, if I want to change that, I can just come into my decorations, and there's all kinds of different screens and whatnot that I can now begin to add in. And this is where this kind of stuff really can come in handy. And we can start to layer this stuff right on top. There's all kinds of different parts and machine bits. That we can add into this as well. We can add in something like this on the end. Well, that one's a little bit too obtuse. We'll do something like this. And we can even make its width something, something along those lines, if we so wished. And create our little consoles and areas. I'm going to grab a shadow. I want to find a round shadow. Something along this lines. And I'm going to drop down this opacity a bit. Something like this, very subtle. And in my decor here, I'll actually make a new layer. We'll put this right above it. Oh, no, I can actually use the other shadow layer. So let's delete that. And now what I'm actually going to do is start to paint in my own shadows here. And I'm just going to move and click along. So any of these areas that I want to add an additional kind of shadow content, I totally can. So like in here, if I want to add in, we can make these a little bit of an oblong shape as well. So I can start to click this right in here and create a nice little shadow coming off of these edges. If I want to create a little shadow down here that is off of the desk onto the chair, I can. Or maybe even on these little items. Or if I want to add in just a little bit extra along some of these edges to give it a little bit more shape. I might want to add in some along this edge. And again, because I'm using the same image over and over again, there's no impact on the network performance. Yes, the flip has been fixed. Yes, a new shiny theme. That's right, Jiminy. Oh, we have a question from Harry on YouTube. I'm trying to test the new lighting features with one of my players, and when I add a token light candle, it is showing up on my screen, the DM, but not the players. Any tips on what I'm missing? So make sure that the player, the lighting will only update when the player moves the token sometimes. So make sure that they move their token. Make sure that you have all of the things enabled. So if you go into your the play area here, make sure that you have your LOS enabled and the lighting system enabled. Make sure that the area that they're in is dark so that you can actually see the lighting from the player token. And make sure that the token that you've dragged onto the playing field comes from the combat tracker. It has to come from the combat tracker. And it's best if you add the effect of the light in the combat tracker under the effects. You can do it if you're in 5e or in any of the rule sets. There is a preset here in the effects right here. All of your lighting presets are right in here as well. And these are going to change depending on the rule set. And I'm just going to make sure that I have my stamp selected. Excellent. So we have quite a nice little room that we've created here. And we could add in tons of more elements in here if we so wished. But let's go back to our interior pack here and type in light. We have some wall lights here. And on my wall layer, I'm just going to drop in a couple of these. And we'll do a couple here. And this will be where we'll set up our little lights from. Or these could be emergency lights. And maybe we'll do something out here. Maybe this is another room where maybe this is like a lab. And we can grab a stools. Whoop. Oh, great, Harry. Yeah, if you have any questions, just let us know. We'll do our best to help you work through them. Oh yes, in the Suede rule set, that has a completely different effects engine. So there is some errors that get thrown when you try to use them specifically, but you can just type in the actual effect. So even in Suede, if you open in your combat tracker and you type in light, for example, 10 torch, it'll add it no problem. It's just the presets that don't seem to function properly in Savage Worlds at the moment. But that's a rule set issue. Going back down into my decor, I think I'll drop in a couple of these little stools around. And let's see, I think we have like a microscope. So maybe we'll add in a couple of microscopes here. And this is where it can get really fun with doing some machines and machine parts. We can start to build up any sort of devices that we want here. Where all of these cool experiments are going on, right? And we have some really nice, if we go back up to our brushes, we have some cool like railing brushes and whatnot that work really well, and pipes as well. So for example, we have like some pipes maybe up above our walls. Let's add a new one. And this is where this kind of stuff really starts to get fun. You can start to build out some of this stuff. If you wanted to build some pipe networks going around and whatnot. But one of the things that I found is that these railing brushes work really good for like wires and stuff. So we can make this quite small. Actually, we'll use this one because we can make this any color we want. Maybe we'll make it like red. And now we can go down into our decor layer down here. Maybe even, yeah. And we can start to draw out wires to things. And we can change the color. Really start to add in some cool stuff here. Oh, let's see, we have some questions here. Is there a way to add lighting effect to an action item from the character sheet? Yes. Not to the item, but to the depending. So this is rule set specific. You can add in effects to elements in the 5e character sheet. I know that. Which any player created effect that is added from their character sheet can do that. Yes. So here, if you go into your effects area, right, you can create your own custom effects here. So let's say, for example, I do light 10 torch, right? So I have this already set up, and then all I have to do is drag and drop this. I can set this for a number of rounds if I want to, minutes, hours, whatever I want to do, and all of these things. So if I go into my combat tracker, and let's delete this, I can just grab and drop this right on here, and it'll automatically add that. So you can also set up your own stuff in through here. And you can see it's set up for 1 minute or 10 rounds. The 10 is the distance. And depending on the system, so in 5e, for example, it's 10 feet. If you're in Savage Worlds, it's going to be the number of squares. So it'll be dependent also on your grid. So if I change my grid from a 5-foot grid to a 10-foot grid, it's going to adjust it that way as well. So the 10 in that instance is the number of feet. So what it will do is it'll go 10 feet of bright light and then 10 feet of dim light. Yes, play games. So the question is, going forward, will art packs have lighting included in assets? Yes. So like torches, for example, you'll be able to just drag and drop them out and it'll automatically have the lighting on there. Yes, yeah. Well, the player can do it the same kind of thing. So if we were to open up this area in here, right? So I'm not as familiar with these systems as I am with the artistic systems. But if you go into and you can create in the Actions tab, add in a new elements in here, right? So whenever you add in new additional elements, right? Like you can, I think that you can add in properties as well, but I'm not exactly sure. Let's see here. I'm not exactly sure what I just did with Bob here. Looks like my add power button is not working at the moment. But yeah, you should be able to add in all of your things in your Actions tab. It's for example, in your main tab here, because you have dark vision here, whatever you write in here will also be added instantaneously. So if we look at, let's look at Bobbert here. So yes, so we have this nice one in here. We can add in all of the same types of things, right? Like the duration of it, and in here, I think we can add in our own effect. Yeah, no problem at all. I'm more than happy to investigate these things. I haven't actually played 5e in a really long time, so I don't really know the rule set as well in this particular system. I only chose 5e to show off the particular theme here. So let's get back into our decorations and start to build some of the stuff up. You can see how fun this can kind of get as you begin to build some of this stuff around. And we can even, if I come back up into this area, right, we could, let's reset it. So if I wanted to add in, maybe I'll just make them quite dark. Something like this. And like I said, if I wanted to add in some like things, maybe hanging from the ceiling, lots of wires and pipes and things going around. And maybe there's things coming from the walls down to here. And I could always drop this down underneath my walls too. But let's build like a machine though. Maybe in this corner. I think all I'll do is I'll start off with this. We'll go back into my decor area here. And I'll grab some of these other parts. Whoops. Make sure I'm in the right area here. And I can grab some of these other elements as well. Yeah, I think I'll put it here. And this is great for like building like ship engines and whatnot. Yeah, 5e, what's that? Let's add in some screens. And now we can go beneath if we wanted to, and let's go all the way up to our brushes. We'll grab some of these pipes. I'm going to go down onto my base layer here. And we'll be adding in some additional. Ooh, that's kind of weird, huh? Let's fix that. Whoops, accidentally deleted that. And we can change the color of this. I'm going to go back and grab my shadow again. Well, let's maybe we could use this one. I think we're going to use this one. We'll drop down our opacity. And I'm just going to trace right along the edge of this. Just add in a nice little shadow coming off of them. And I'll make it a little bit larger, and I'm just going to go along the edge of this. And we can go back up into our decor now. Again, drop down the opacity. And I'm going to switch over to my stamp. And I'm just going to stamp in some additional shadows coming off of this. Give it a little bit more shape. And maybe even down inside of this like mechanical stuff down and through here too. And now I'm going to make it a little bit oblong. And so that I can just kind of come along the edge of these. And we can come in and add in some additional kind of shadow stuff on these as well. Make it round again and just add in a little bit of stuff off of this. And maybe some on these stools. And right along the edge of this. And you don't have to be super exact. I like to just do it to add a little bit extra flair. Yeah, they're a real tripping hazard for sure. You know what? I haven't for a while, Jimny. I have to get on there and do that. I have a whole bunch to add to the module exchange. Yes, I played Phandelver last year. That's right. Great. And so now we have a pretty good little setup here. It took us a little while to build, but not too long at all. So now let's add in, we have our lighting, our line of sight all done. Let's do our lighting. So I'm going to turn on line of sight and my lighting and switch back over. So again, I'm going to switch into my add lights, and I'm actually going to, before I do that, let's turn off this so I can grab some of these colors appropriately. And I'm just going to grab maybe something like this. Let's do that. And now what I'll do is we'll drop this down. I think we'll do maybe like 1, and we'll make this 50. And then we'll add this to 10. And I'm just going to place them right along here. And I'm just going to place these on all of these little screens. And we might need to adjust some of this stuff after the fact. And now when I come back in here and I turn this on, you can see we get this nice little ambient glow here. So I can come in and I can grab these and adjust them. Maybe I want to make that 0 and just do dim lighting. And then I can bring this in to something along those lines. I think that this side, maybe I could do like 1.2. And don't forget, you can add in any sort of decimal you wish if you really want to get in and do some minor kind of adjustments. I think this one will benefit from just having a 0 there. And I think that one I'll increase maybe to like, that's a little bit too much, 1.5. And this one as well. So remember, this is in feet now. So it'd have to be 5 in order for it to fill up an entire square. Okay, so we have another question here. Is there a cool way to make like northern lights for an outdoor setting? I bet you could do it. I bet you could do it, and I wouldn't do it with the lighting system. I would do it. I would do it with the lighting system, but in conjunction with some of the effects layers, and we could probably do that. Let's see. How would I go about that? If I were going to be doing that. Northern lights. So you want to show like the northern lights and how it would light up the ground? Is that what you're doing? You're doing a top-down perspective? Because that could, we could definitely do lots of different stuff. So if I was going to be doing like a prismatic kind of light down on the ground itself, Here, let's just grab something here. I'll go into the 2019 art pack. I'll grab one of these backgrounds just for like quick simplicity's sake. I want to do so. I'll grab this one. Just pull this out here. And let's say we want to do like some sort of like prismatic kind of colors across this. Let's turn off that for the moment. I'll just line this up. So what I would actually do, you could actually add in, oh no, that's fine. I love these little challenges. So how would I come up with a way of doing that inside of the system? So what I would probably do is create an effects layer. And inside of here, I would probably do several different ones. Are you doing a primary color? You want to do like several different colors, or are you just doing something that is that kind of maybe bluey, greeny glow? Because you could do it just with an adjust layers. We could enable a mask, and if you wanted to create these little areas, you know, because it makes these like bands or ribbons. So you could create your little ribbons, and I'll just do this like super simply. We'll blur this out so it gets this, and this is going to be a little bit too much, so we'll back this off. And I would probably the blur right now is a little bit small. We will get it back where we can blur this out to a greater degree, but currently it's a little bit on the blurry side. Oh yeah, sure. So I would probably do it this way, and I would actually let's bring this down. To make it more subtle. So you can make these kind of bands, and you could do a couple of different ones. And yeah, so let's bring this down to like 52, 52, 52. And then I'll duplicate that. And then I will pull this in some. And we'll turn our lighting on in a minute. We'll illuminate this. Maybe in a couple of different patterns here. And then I might increase this one to like 54. Well, maybe not that much. To get these kind of nice swirly kind of patterns, and if we turn on a line of sight, you can see it's a little bit. And then I would, well, let's turn this back on. Move these. I think we'll do it. Yeah, something like that. And I would do a series of lights along this. We might want to just do dim lighting here. We'll light it up here. We'll see what we can create. I don't know why it's making a new layer each time, but should all be on one layer. And now if we turn all of this back on, and what I'll do is I'll come in here and I'm going to grab all of these, make that 0. And let's make it some overlapping. That's too much. And then we can drop down our opacity. We might not even need to do the, we may want to move some of these closer together though so that they overlap properly. Yeah, I would say with this blur, it's not going to work as way that I would want it to, so I'd probably just delete these. And then if we set up ambient light, and we made this like nighttime, well, maybe we'll make it like a little bit purpley at nighttime. And now we can come back into our area here and let's bring up this opacity now. And then what I would do is I would add a new effects layer on top. And our effects, I would do something like and we can get rid of our droplet. And then I would mask this. And I would pull this out. Blur that edge. And then bring down our speed. So you get this really subtle kind of shimmer. And you can even try adding in, let's duplicate it. Maybe even like clouds. And if we drop down our shadows and make this very subtle, and then we drop down our speed down to something like 55. So you get a little bit of movement in there as well. Or maybe even, we might even want to do like ocean to make it more shimmery. And bring back our distortion. Yeah, that's what I would do. And I'd probably bring this is still, the intensity is a little bit too much. Yeah, that's how I would do it, I think. And what I would do is I would just set these up and put them all in a folder. So now if we have a folder, and then I could grab all of this stuff and drop it right in there. And I would just call this like end lights. So I could just turn it all off and on again. Well, maybe it doesn't turn the lights off. I guess it just turns the effect layers off. Oh, I don't. You know what it is, Dark, is that I work in the system a lot, so coming up with ways to interact with the system itself rather than the other system. And now let's go to our ambient light here, and let's so depending on how much ambient light you want, you're gonna have to adjust all these other lights. You might even want to do these, keep this white and then just bring down your ambient. So yeah, I think you could do something like that. And I would just control, you know what I actually do to make this seem a little bit more tapered is I would come in and maybe make this one smaller. And then this one, like gradually taper off in places. But you could stack these all up together. And then where these ones, I would just separate them. Oh yeah, yeah. Alien Planet is great. In fact, you know what would be really cool too is you can go into the. One of my favorite things to do is use the underwater art package because all of these underwater plants are super alien, right? So if we start to paint these around as well. Oh, that's neat. And we can start to, I think that these are great for creating like alien environments. And you can even come in and adjust these colors to whatever you want. Yeah, the underwater art package I think is great for creating like alien environments. And I would drop these two effects underneath the. So you just kind of get it on the ground itself. All right, so we're kind of coming to the end of the stream today, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Do you guys have any other questions, or is there anything else that I can help you with before we kind of end here? Let's go back in, and I'm just gonna continue to build up some of my lights in here. Yeah, no problem at all, Talon Bam. Yeah, yeah, DJ Break Time. That's absolutely correct. I love it for the Underdark. It's super cool for that. And what I like to do, this is one of the things that I really like to do, especially in these kind of environments, is if I'm trying to create like natural kind of lighting from like the ceiling or something, I'll create one light and then I'll test it out, figure out exactly how I like it with all of these drop offs. And then I will duplicate it again. So we might want the dim to be coming out like this. And you can see that that creates a really nice kind of natural light as it fades out into these areas. So 20 and 50 with the same. So I might do the same with this. And then once you have it set up with your preset, you can just start to drop them around. And I really like this kind of, these natural kind of creations that happen. Yeah, great, DJ Breaktime. Is there a way to turn off Fog of War altogether? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, Sean. That is generally, oh, so the memory of where they are. I don't believe that there is currently, but that might be something that we can toggle off in the future. Yeah, I agree, Dark Mantle. I would love to be able to copy and paste lights. So fall off is um, the fade between elements, right? So if I'll drop a light over here. So you see how the transition. Whoop, I didn't mean to create a new one. Let's delete that one. So the transition from the light area, the bright area, to the dim lit area is the fall off. So if I make this 0, you can see that we have a very clear understanding of where it is. So here is the fall off of these two areas, right? We have the bright area, and then we have the dim area. Now, if I make this 100, you can see that it's a very nice, smooth gradient. Yeah, you bet. And so this is great depending on what you need to do. So if you have to have a clear line about where that actual defined area transitions, you can set your fall off to 1. But if you want more of an ambient kind of situation, you can go all the way up to 100, where you see you get this really very subtle kind of gradient. And then we could add flicker to it, or we could do a flash. And a pulse goes in and out. Yeah, 40 for the bright and 75 for the dim. And once you have your lighting set up too, like I would probably come back and revisit these. I might drop down the opacity of them. And also, we can also create lights that are darkness too, that actually give darkness, as you can see. And these are exactly the same kind of system, except in the reverse. If a light goes off of the area, so if we come over and let's create a new light over here, it will only go where there is an image. So if I put this off of the map, it will bleed on, yes, but you won't be able to see anything off of the image, but it will definitely bleed on. Yeah, sure. So you could totally do it. So if you wanted to add in like a pulse from this, You can even do like a nice slow one. Something like this. For sure. And if you want to keep it directional, uh, you could uh, you could use occluders for this. So you could use like a shadow caster, and if you wanted to make sure that it was like only in a specific area here, and then when we come back, you can see that it'll have like a nice. And it doesn't even have to be that much, right? Like, because the light's here, we could actually move this to like here. Yeah, there's. I think that really the only limitation is your own imagination. So yeah, jump out there and explore, figure stuff out. And if you guys ever run into a problem, or if there is something that I like to add my work email here. So if you run into a problem, or if there is something that you don't quite understand, or if you figure something out that you've come up with that's really cool, certainly I'd love to see it and share it with me. Send me an email, and I'm more than happy to do what I can. If there is something that you'd like to see me, I stream every Saturday from 3 p.m. to around 6. And we do everything that's art related. I talk about the art related news. We go over map creation. We go through all the art packs. If there is an art package that you're thinking about getting, and yet you're unsure of what's in there, I'm more than happy to demonstrate it on the stream or anything else along those lines. So yeah, feel free. If you guys come up with some cool stuff that you're doing with lighting, I'd love to see it. So certainly send it my way as well. Yeah, like an open portal, right? So we could, you could totally build a portal around the edge here and have this like glowing light for sure. We could change its color. Maybe we'll make it red. Maybe we'll make it just a little bit orange. There we go. Richard, it just came out on Thursday, so update your game. Lighting is now live, so it's all out. Everything is been released. Yeah, you bet. Great. So if there is no other questions, we'll call it here. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. Again, this is the dark theme that will be coming out this next month. So if you do have the art subscription, you will get that included. Um, in addition to that, there's two other art packages. There's a huge decal art package that I have recently created. So if you guys aren't familiar with this, you guys can do any of your own custom decals in the background. So let's grab something like this, and we can set this to a background, and that will be a decal. So I have a huge art pack of all kinds of different decals that you can use to set the mood of your games as well. In addition to that is the GM symbols and tokens. So that is all of the different stuff that you need to add to your maps for secret doors and all of those things. So those are the new art packages that'll be coming out this next month as well as this dark theme. Oh, well, thanks, DJ Breaktime. Yeah, for sure. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you again so much, and we'll be back next week at 3 p.m. We're going to be diving deep into some more map creation. And if anything changes in the lighting, if there's any updates, I'll keep you guys informed with that as well. So thanks, everybody, and continue to use Fantasy Grounds. It's a great platform, and we will see you all next time.